used to do this little exercise because one of the things I had to do was to teach science graduate students a little bit about art. You know, just the way it was I gave this class. And one of the way I did it, one of the things I did was to because I understand I had a scientific education and also an artistic one, you know, not an art, I'm actually an artist. So I understand scientific method, you know, and I know how it works. So I was able to say to the scientists in the group, I was going to say, well, look, you know, consider how you approach developing a hypothesis, right? You basically, you look at the data and you say, I wonder if this is what's happening. And you develop a basic hypothesis. So far, so good. And then what you do is you design an experiment to test it. Right? So you design an experiment, you carry out your experiment. Does it confirm what you have hypothesized? If so, proceed. If not, then you have to go back and you have to say, well, why wasn't my hypothesis, why didn't it predict correctly the results of that experiment? And you'll change the hypothesis, right? In such a way, or you might say, well, the experiment was wrong, it didn't actually test what I was looking for. So you have to go back and redesign, is what I'm basically saying. That's exactly what an artist does. Now, trust me, that is what we do. You consider a painter. Now, you may not, I don't care if you don't like certain kinds of painting or whatever, they're all basically the same. You consider a painter, right? I'm actually a photographer, it doesn't matter. He makes a mark. He'll make a mark and then he'll decide, does that mark work or does it not work? You know, if you're good at what you're doing, it usually does, but that's not the point. You have to learn. And the internalized process that's going on in your head is, does that work or does it not work? And if it works, you leave it alone and move on. If it doesn't work, you go, I don't like that. Or you make another mark, you change it. And I used to give this illustration to scientists, science grad students, and they all got it. They immediately went, oh gosh, really? That's so similar to how we think. And of course it is. It's the same. The point here, however, is that your scientist can go out and he can actually test it, you know. He can take a couple of weights up the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It doesn't lean anymore, I don't believe. Ping, land on the ground at the same time. We've just demonstrated it. We've got it, you know. We know this works. A painter can't do that. So what's he using? How is he arriving at that decision that makes that mark right and this mark wrong? That's innate. Somewhere inside all of us, fair enough, influenced by culture, influenced by our upbringing, influenced by all of the other pieces of art that we've ever seen or read, just the way it was when we talked about the literary stuff, and we talked about how if you read a book that's influenced by all of the books you've ever read before, no matter all these influences, you have got a baseline, right? You've got an understanding, when you make something, of what works, of what is actually successful. And I'm going to argue that's innate, and that postmodernism attempts to destroy that, right? So postmodernism doesn't only destroy the conceptual basis of criticism, it destroys the conceptual basis of making art. If everything is worth as much as everything else, then nothing is worth anything, basically. And that's what is being said. And it gets 100 times, if that's bad enough in the arts, and believe me, it's bad enough in the arts, to see, you know, when I went to undergrad school, Duchamp's fountain wasn't even in the main textbooks. I've got one of them here, I just had a look. It's just not there. Nobody thought it was important. The influence of postmodernists in the 1970s caused his work to be reevaluated, and unfortunately it basically is responsible for the pollution that infests modern art galleries, called concept art or conceptual art, which is a little toss, to put it mildly. All art has concept. All art, you cannot make art without concept. But when you reduce art to only concept, what you've actually done is thrown out all the fucking art. It's that simple. So what I'm saying is that we all know what's good. We just do. It may be culturally conditioned and influenced, but we still know what's good. I don't think anybody really knows how we know what's good and what's bad, but we do, or why we do this. It must be something evolutionary. But we know that given a piece of art, you put it in a public place, a lot of people will like it. And I would say that that's a free market test of the quality of a piece of art. If a lot of people like it, then it must be good. I remember, actually, this is at undergrad school, and they used to do this thing at the Scottish Academy of the Arts every year, where you had to put in a piece. And I was being particularly adventurous at the time, so I'd done this big windmill, you know, this musical windmill. It played music. You turned the sails and it rang a set of chimes, you know. And it was all made out of welded up bits of metal, and it was all very Jean Dangly, you know, that kind of thing, which is very fashionable at the time. Now, I was fascinated because I would get calls at the college to go down to the gallery where this thing was on show. It was up for 2 weeks. From the keepers of the gallery and say, God, you're going to have to come down again. They've broken it. And I would go down, and what was happening was people, I could just stay and watch, fascinated, you know. People would go up to this windmill, and they wouldn't take a look at the other stuff, all the formalist sculpture that was lying about, you know, and all the abstract painting that was lying about. They'd go up to this thing, and it was big, you know, it was about 8 foot tall, and they'd grab the sails and they'd go whang like that. And of course it would go bling, 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 and all the bells would go bling, 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 and they'd keep looking around and they'd go back and do it again. And this is what was happening. People loved it. They absolutely loved it. It appealed to a part of them that, I'm not talking about people who had big artistic ideas or were educated in that way. I'm talking about ordinary Joes off the street on a rainy day. Okay? Scotland, so they're probably Jimmies, you know what I mean. They went in there and they knew immediately that that piece of art appealed to them. It was like a toy. It was like, it had that, you know, oh God, I can't keep my hands on it, off it, I've got to touch it. If you go into a gallery of sculpture where they actually let you touch, and a lot of galleries they don't, you'll find that there are parts of all the sculptures, all the bronzes, that are slightly shinier than the rest. And that's because there's something about us, you know, we can't help it. you find that you kind of, that's nice. You know, Henry Moore and you, I feel that sculptural form. That's innate. These people aren't taught art. That's just people going, oh, that's nice. So what I'm saying is that there is actually an underlying baseline for the quality of ideas expressed through the medium of art. It therefore follows that there's an underlying basis that everybody understands that defines a baseline for quality in works of literature and in works of music. If that is true, then postmodernism is dead. You have just shot postmodernism through the head. You just killed it dead, because postmodernism will not stand for that. Postmodernism says everything's equal. It's all down to the individual. It's all down to the viewer. There are no baseline standards. They don't happen. But observation, always critical, will show that yes, they do happen. We do have baselines. We do know what's good and what's bad. And it's nothing to do with, you know, our cultural background or education. We know it instinctively and viscerally. We know what we like, and we know what we like because it's good. Okay? Not because we like what we know. We know what we like because it's good. It speaks to us. It appeals to us. That understanding, as soon as you accept that, right, you have killed postmodernism. You've killed it dead. Everything that it says is disproven by that simple understanding that actually there is a baseline. We can say some things are good and some things are not good. That's it. Postmodernism's dead. Now that's looking at postmodernism and completely destroying it, which I've just done, in terms of artistic endeavour, and going to galleries, buying music, reading books. Postmodernism has been destructive enough in terms of particularly gallery art. Gallery art now is just utter shit, and it's all because of postmodernism, because the idea is anything goes. It's now the artist defines the goal of the art, and therefore anything that succeeds in that context must be good art. It's absolute nonsense. It's got nothing to do with, they've completely rejected the idea that people could just go in and like it. That's no, can't have that. That's too populist. It's balls. It's just cultural elitism of the worst kind. Snobbery, a nasty intellectual snobbery that says, because I read a few books on art, I know more than you, and my opinion is therefore more important than yours, which is basically what is the baseline of postmodernism. I don't care what the facts are. My ideas are my ideas. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Tell that to the angry grizzly bear that's coming after your ass. So, we've looked at how postmodernism just doesn't work in the area that it's meant to work, which is a criticism of the arts. To make matters 100 times worse, in our contemporary world, we've taken, well, I haven't, but some of us have taken postmodernism and we've applied it to reality. And like I said earlier about, my dick's female. The hell it is. It just isn't. If it's a failure in the area of that which it was intended to work in, how much more a failure is it in an area that has been applied to, that the original thinkers had no intention of it being applied in? How much more does postmodernism fail when it's applied to hard science, for example, if it already fails in consideration of the arts? If it doesn't work in that area in which it is meant to work, how can it possibly work in another area? If postmodernism does not actually give us a set of tools through which we can assess the creative endeavour of other human minds, how the hell can it possibly give us the tools that we need to assess the objective reality around us? And that is where, next we're going to come back to this, that is where postmodernist thinkers made the fatal error that should, I hope, consign their entire body of thought to a long overdue grave. They decided that objective reality doesn't exist. That too is all dependent on the individual viewer. And to do this, they mixed up a whole bunch of nonsensical, many of the ideas that they base this on are actually real, but they use them in a completely nonsensical way, such that, no, it can't be held to be true. But unfortunately, postmodernist thinkers use this notion that objective reality isn't real. The objective reality is real, actually. To justify their use of postmodernism as the philosophical underpinning of a political movement called cultural Marxism. Now, we'll get into that. Meantime, I'm hungry. I need some food. Take care. Next rant coming soon.